then the basic idea of the coexistence and competition revolves around the factor or the fact of niche. Niche is actually a French term which is named for a cavity or a space that is specifically meant for the models or monuments or sculptures in old buildings. So there it came from the idea of niche. But in ecological terms, it talks about a specific distributional unit. Okay, it's pretty specific. Niche is very specific, which is occupied only by one species. Only the one species is occupying that particular region and is not shared. So niche is a very specific term made for specialized habitat which is only occupied by one species and is not shared. So this term was coined by Joseph Grinnell in 1971. Now there are multiple types of niche. You can conceptualize that in a way that it can be based on competition, that there is fundamental and realized niche. And the fundamental niche talks about the region of habitual space. Okay, I mean the habitable region that a species can occupy. That is the fundamental niche. Whereas realized niche talks about a kind of a habitat which is determined after competition. Okay, so fundamental niche talks about a habitable region. You can talk, with respect to competition, whereas realized niche talks about a region after competition. So you can see thus with this example. So there are two different barnacles of thalamus group and semibalanous groups. So the barnacles are usually found on the surface of rocks, which vary with respect to tides that come in. So low tide and high tide. So the low tide level is usually around this much, let's say, and the high tide level is around this much. So usually thalamus only, without the presence of a competitor, will occupy the entire region. But if there is competition, if they are facing competition, then they will divide the region of physical space. Okay, as because semibalanous, the other sort of barnacles, prefer water over air, so they will occupy a region which is mostly around low tide, because low tide regions are usually filled with water, but high tide regions are partially filled with water whenever there is high tide, and all the other time they are filled with nothing. I mean, usually they are open to air. So if thalamus occupies more of the region with air, then semibalance requires more of the region with water, then both of them can strive, and the realized niche will be formed of thalamus and semibalanous accordingly. So the resource is now divided, and both of them has occupied two different areas or two different regions, which is their realized niche. So if thalamus was absent in this area, semibalanous could have occupied the entire region. Similar case for thalamus happened. But when both of them are present, each of them have to specialize their needs, according to which they will be divided across the rock with respect to their requirement of water and air or tides, right? So hope you understood the idea of fundamental and realized niche. So we can understand with this graph where two species are present. Okay, both of them are occupied this particular resource. So this is the range of the niche. So A occupied this much, B occupied this much. Okay, when both of them are present, but actually A's region is up to this much. Okay, and B's occupancy is up to this much. Right, so you can see that the range of A and B is overlapping. So there is an overlap of this area. So there is an overlap of this region. Now this overlap is called niche overlap. Okay, this is called niche overlap, where the requirement is actually overlapping between the two resources. So in the absence of one particular species, that is, let's say red is for species 1 or A, and blue is for species 2 or B. Okay, so here we are seeing that in the absence of one other species, this is the particular niche range. So this is the range, whereas for B, this is the range. Now the range overlaps in a particular area. This is called niche overlap. Okay, so here we are talking about range of niche, niche overlap, and the idea of fundamental and realized niche. So this is the basic region. In the absence of competitor is the fundamental niche. In the presence of a competitor, what will happen is the niche overlap will go off. The niche overlap will go off. How will it go? The stronger competitor will take a larger range, and the weaker competitor will take a smaller range. Okay, avoiding the niche overlap. So the smaller competitor or the weaker competitor will actually go off and leave off the niche overlap and will reduce itself to the region or the range of its niche. You can see in this graph also the strong competitor took over particular this region and the fundamental niche shrinked. Okay, the fundamental niche of species B or species 2 reduced up to this much, that is mostly the range of niche overlap, and this became the realized niche. Now realized niche has no competition. Okay, niche overlap has highest competition. Fundamental niches have their own range of competitions as well. So realized niche usually has no competition as because they are shared or divided after competitionary regions. So hope you understand the basic difference between fundamental and realized niche. Moving on to how resource allocation, that means division of resources with respect to niche or the competition or variation happens. Now there is physical niche. Physical niche talks about physical occupancy that can be over a specific time period or specific space. Okay, that means niche talks about period of activity as well. Okay, so if a region is occupied by a particular species, then that is about physical space. So one particular physical space can be occupied by two different regions. It can be for A, it can be for B. Now the division of the niche happened, realized and fundamental niche kind of division happened, and they occupy two different regions. So that is physical niche. Temporal niche talks about division of different activity periods of time. Okay, so let's set example of moths and butterflies. Both of them depend on nectars or fruit saps or tree saps. The thing is, they have differential activity period. So moths are usually active around the dusk and the evening period or at night, whereas majority of butterflies are usually active throughout day. So the difference between the temporal activities or their activity periods in specific time leads them to less competition. Of the same resource, they're occupying the same resource, somewhat the same resource, but the thing is now divided themselves and they have formed temporal niche, time periods. Then comes trophical niche. Tropic niche talks about differences with respect to trophical ideas or foods. Okay, so it can be, differences in different food habits. So one can occupy a particular food habit, which leads to drinking of sap rather than eating the sap. Okay, so it can be, developing a proboscis which actually pokes in and drinks saps only and not eating the fruit entirely. So the same thing they're occupying, the fruit is being occupied, but one is dependent on the only the liquid part, but the other one is dependent on the flesh or the fibril part. And then there is difference in resources in the food. Okay, so this is simple one, like you have to occupy different fruits. It can be other, even if you're occupying the same fruit, it can be, if I dependent on the seeds only, you can go for the flesh, one can go for the only cover. Okay, it can be different. Then comes hyper volume niche. Now hyper volume niche is a mixed concept in the sense it talks about, not only a single occupancy of niche, but also different sorts of multiple occupancies of niche. So it's a multimodal example. Hyper volume niche talks about niche is not just about one particular condition, it talks about multiple conditions. So ecological stratification talks more about, physical divisions between multiple species. Okay, the idea of niche and the population was based on this much of competition between two or little bit of species, or two or more species. But when we are talking about multiple interacting species that form different sub communities within a community, then ecological stratification talks about physical division of them. Okay, that means ecological stratification usually happens with respect to the resources. That means if the resource is uniformly distributed, then that will form a particular sub community. Okay, they are actually divided in multiple ideas, or the basis can be either quantitative or qualitative. Quantitative characteristics of ecological stratification depends on the frequency of the species, that means population size and density we are talking about, or it could be about abundance. Okay, abundance of that particular species with abundance of that particular species with respect to the available environmental conditions or factors or the resource. It can also talk about the entire basal area or the cover area that a species takes. Okay, so all of this character actually talks about ecological stratification of that particular region. with respect to the community and subcommunities. Now, qualitative characters talks about how a species will react or live out in that region. It could be about growth structure, how the population grows, birth and death that is happening, the sociability, interaction between those species, and the dominance of one particular species over the other. So these are qualitative characters that defines ecological stratification. So ecological stratification talks about division of land masses or ecosystems or different major communities into subcommunities with respect to conditions, environmental, it could be biological and all. So giving an example, it could be either horizontal. Horizontal stratification here gives an idea about how they are horizontally divided. If you can see a pond, usually water bodies are horizontally stratified in such a manner that they are prone to sunlight. Okay, so wherever the light falls, the region becomes photic zone, and then there is dysphotic zone and aphotic zone. So it could be also talking about how much of activity that happens in that particular region. Okay, so light compensation level of the photic zone that we are calling, we'll talk about the horizontal region at which the species will be more active to occupy and take up light as a resource. But the profundal zone or the dysphotic zone or aphotic zone that we take about, let's say, has moreover less kind of activity with respect to light. It can be also talking about amount of activities and disturbances that happens. Surface disturbances are more up to this region, which is limnatic zone and littoral zone. In the profundal zone, the surface disturbances are less. In rainforest, we can also stratify the entire region. There is emergent layer, or then there is canopy layer. Emergent layer talks about the layer which always grows up. Emergent layer is usually the layer which talks about emergent growth of the plant processes. Now, canopy layer is the actual higher top of the plants. Then there is understory, okay, and then there is forest floor. Okay, so there are different kind of stratification of forest even, which also talks about how different species occupies that particular region. So if you find different species in different layers, and that is stratified accordingly. So different kind of fruits and plant types and plant availability are present in rainforest with respect to different layers as well. Now coming to vertical stratification, vertical stratification is moreover vertical, which talks about a specific range of a habitat from a point of view. Okay, so from a point of view, I'm talking about how far it is from the coast or the upland. So this will talk about the coastal zone, the open ocean zone, and the interior zone as well. This talks about high tide and lower tidal zone, and so on. Apart from that, we can also divide usually with respect to neritic zone, intertidal zone, oceanic zone, and all. So all this vertical stratification also talks about which species will be available in particular region. Now coming to understanding that there might be different resources that may be interacting. So here we are talking about a transition zone. Transition zone talks about a point where two different communities interact and match or overlap. Okay, so here two communities, let's say here I'm talking about a grassland, or here I'm talking about a forest land. Okay, so there are few regions where both of them actually fuse together, and that is called a transition zone or a ecotone. So ecotone is usually the transition zone that happens between two different kind of communities, and it may be narrow or it may be wide. Narrow or wide in the sense it can be either local, that is within a community there might be small processes which is differences between transitions, or it could be regional in the sense there are two different communities that are interacting. So there are many types of systems where within a community there might be certain characters which are different, and that forms local transition zones, whereas sometimes there are entirely two different communities interacting, so that forms a regional transition zone. Then coming to edge effect talks about the ecological concept where it describes that there is usually greater diversity across the edges. That is, in transition zone you will find greater diversity. Now there are multiple definitions or terms that are associated with different transition zones. Okay, one is ecocline. Ecocline and ecotones are somewhat similar in the fact that ecotone is a sort of ecological character that you are observing. Okay, ecotone talks about the idea that animals actually occupy and vegetations actually occupy, or different organisms actually share the transition zone. Okay, But ecocline talks about a physical transition zone. Okay, ecocline is only talking about physical attributes, like it can be about soil, it could be about climatic conditions, it could be about physiochemical environmental changes. Okay, the difference between ecocline and ecotone is ecocline is talking about only physical factors, whereas ecotone talks about the biological entities and the divisions as well. Like I'm talking about divisions of plants, divisions of animals distribution, and that's all. So when I talked about distribution of forest and grasslands make the main community by the availability of plants. So if the grasses are available more, then we call that as grassland. If the more shrubs and trees, then we call it forest land. So here we are facing towards the idea of ecotone with respect to plant communities or vegetation communities, whereas ecocline talks about differences in soil quality, water availability, soil type, and all that. Okay, so they are interdependent terms, whereas ecotypes, xenospecies, and ecophenes talk about species. Okay, ecotype is usually the distinctly genetic species that are geographically varying. Okay, so in that particular community that you found, there are two communities. Let's say one is filled with ice, one is usually filled with rocks. Then you will find different kind of communities and species in that region. And few species will be modified and adapted to that particular region only, and they become the ecotype. Okay, so for example, you are talking about polar bears, which are specifically made and adapted themselves with respect to living in ice, whereas grizzly bears are usually found in case of forests and mountains. So they vary across a geographical variety or population with respect to the available environmental specific conditions. Okay, then there is xenospecies. Now xenospecies are two different kind of races. Okay, two different kind of available races or breeds of the same species, like dogs and wolves. They belong to the same species, but they have been developed into different geographical regions. They can actually interbreed, but the thing is they have not yet been defined as particular species, and they are having different physical characters with respect to their physical environment. Okay, now ecophenes talks about same species which have different appearances in size, erect, prostate, and nature, and reproductive vigor, and everything. But the thing is, that is not genetically fixed. Now, the character that they have developed is not genetically fixed. Okay, so they can actually deform to one particular character, or they can come back to the one particular character if they return back to a neutral area. For example, humans. Okay, so humans that are available in case of let's say Middle Eastern regions, and that are available in India. So both of them, they will find that they have variation in skin colors. Okay, they have variation in skin colors. But the thing is, if I take human and place him in that Middle Eastern region, obviously after few years, they will return back to some sort of lighter skin color, and the following generations will obviously become lighter skin color. Okay, and similarly, if the region from Middle Eastern regions have put up into our area, so they will have a higher pigmentation of skin, and they will grow in dark skin color. Okay, so that sort of difference that you're observing is because of the variation of environmental condition, and the condition of skin color is not permanent. It varies with respect to environmental conditions. So these characters vary, like physical size or prostate nature, activity period, and all that differ with environmental condition, but is not fixed. Xenospecies, they are fixed, but still they can interbreed. So the characters in xenospecies are usually fixed. Like in case of dogs and wolves, you can actually find them as different because the character are fixed. They will not actually intermingle or change back, revert back, but they will fuse together from a hybrid. Okay, so xenospecies and all that, so they have certain characters which are entirely different. They have formed according to the environmental requirements, but they can still interbreed. Okay, and the interbreeding will form hybrids. Whereas in case of ecophenes talks about that particular malleable characters which change when they form to neutral habitats.